Hi everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit about our progress report, and we're going to start our conferences. I know that there's one or two scheduled for this evening, a few on Friday and quite a few on Monday. If your group has not already signed up for a progress report, please make sure, or pardon me, a progress report conference, please make sure you do so as soon as possible. I am, as the days approach, so today is Thursday, and if no one had signed up for the time slots, I've canceled them. So in the morning of, I'm going to cancel what isn't filled for that day. That allows me then to actually plan my evening as opposed to having a last minute conference, because I'm not always checking the discussion board. So please make sure that if your group has not already signed up for a conference, that you do so immediately. There are still quite a few slots open. So I want to take a second though and talk about the progress report and talk about at this point, you have quite a bit of research underway. This progress report is kind of that in-between between you're updating the proposal and you're moving towards and thinking about that feasibility report. And so what you're doing now is you're kind of drafting out these sections. Those proposed tasks become completed tasks, which move into the methods and results section. So you kind of take those proposed tasks, what you did, why you did it. That becomes the methods section in your feasibility report. The completed tasks, which is what you did and what you found, becomes that results section in your feasibility report. So you can see how things are starting to kind of come together and how they're building on top of each other to get to this final product, the feasibility report. And as you start drafting these things out, remember several things. First off, do not reinvent the wheel. Please use the outlines and the model example in the book. Two, that you're not starting from scratch, that you are revising, updating, editing the documents that have come before. Okay, so keep those things in mind. But what you also might find now is that as you're working towards a recommendation to see if something is feasible or not, several things could happen. One thing is you could find that your topic is feasible. Absolutely. And so that recommendation starts working towards actually carrying this out. You might find that from where you've researched it's feasible, but there's still a lot of research that needs to be done, such as budgeting. So maybe the recommendation would be doing something such as another feasibility report to see if something is feasible via the budget, right? So it doesn't mean you're doing that project, but that would be your recommendation. You also might come to the realization that this isn't feasible, but plan B is feasible. So maybe we want to do that. And those are all great. The nerve-wracking part, especially as students who are trying to earn good marks, good grades, is if something isn't completely feasible or isn't feasible at all, and what happens? What do you do if you find out that all this research comes to naught? Well, don't panic. That actually happens all the time, and that's why we do feasibility reports to begin with. Because we don't just kind of go out and think that every project is going to happen. If we did that, we would find oftentimes we'd run out of budget. We would be building on a spotted owl habitat, and we'd have all these environmental agencies kind of all over our back, and we'd get shut down, or a million other things could happen. So we do these feasibility reports just to see if something is actually feasible, if it's doable. And from there, then see if we actually want to go through with it. So to come to a point where you realize that your project may not be feasible is completely okay. Sometimes that means that more research needs to be done. Sometimes that means that you have to come back to it, maybe in 5 years, to see if something can be done. Sometimes it could be to reevaluate a budget or an idea, or do it on a smaller scale, or do it somewhere else. Sometimes it could just be that, we need to scrap it, and it just isn't feasible, and things should just remain status quo. So it doesn't mean that you're kind of stuck or that your project is a failure or anything along those lines. It just means that it's not feasible, or not feasible the way that you intend it. So I know as you're kind of starting to draft this out, you're starting to think about these things, right? You're starting to think about that feasibility report and that recommendation. So I just want to give you that sense of comfort that it is okay if you get to that point and realize that something is not feasible. That's the whole purpose behind this project. So hopefully you have a little comfort in that. I know a few of you are kind of getting there in your projects, and we're getting a little nervous. So I wanted to address that because I know pretty much at this point most of you are getting ready to start that final report through the conferencing and through the proposals, or pardon me, the progress reports they've already seen. So with that being said, I look forward to conferencing with each of you and seeing where your projects are at. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and start thinking on maybe a little outside of the box, or for what your recommendation may be with this project. I know that some of you have had some really fabulous research and interviews and interactions with communities and directors and things along those lines, and I'm hoping that you're getting a lot from this assignment and what an impact these projects can have. All right, in the meantime, let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to seeing you all during our conferences.